It causes the turn. So if the Earth did not rotate, it'd be straight down and right back up, straight down, right back up. But now since the Earth rotates, it has the curve. Now we got the other thing. Remember the cameraman George, he's upset, remember? Okay, we got to tilt this thing at, what, 23.5 degrees? I'm just guessing, you know, good scientific guess. Scientific guess, sometimes, if you're professional enough, we call it a theory. All right, so we have then this tilt. Now, what does the tilt do? It gives us the seasons, dude. Summer, fall, winter, and spring. If we did not have the tilt of the Earth, if we were straight up and down, we would have either all summer or all winter, depending on how things. We wouldn't have in between. This tilt actually brings us the different changes in the seasons. Yeah, for you expert students who know all about things, astronomy, you know, sometimes the Earth is closer to the sun than others, and that causes some things too. But the tilt actually is what helps the seasons. All right, so we have this air coming down, and as it comes down, and by the way, it comes down in different places. It comes down what we call the Arctic Circle. It can come down to something called the Tropic of that disease. Oh, Cancer, yeah. Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. And those are where the air is actually coming down at different places. It doesn't all just fall down the North Pole. Sometimes it cools off sooner and it can come down sooner. All right? During the winter season, that's when it can come down sooner. See, you know, cooler up here. All right. Now, what happens when it comes down? We have a battle. Let me take these arrows off of here just for a moment. Let me put a little bow on the Earth. Isn't it cute? Okay. Tighten up a little bit. That line that you see here, held by the magnets, here's the cold air is coming down. But we also have warm air on the Earth that will move upward due to the fact the Earth is turning is the main reason. And when these two come together, you have a war. And that war is called a cold front, warm front. And when we get to that lesson on fronts, there's more than those two fronts. But anyway, this is where it all comes into a battle. This is where the fighting occurs. So in other words, cold air coming down, warm air is going up. If these were two football teams, and the blue team, the warm team, cold team, was more powerful, do you understand? Can you theorize or guess that this would have more push to it? But if the warm air coming up was more powerful than the cold, do you see how that could push that up like that? See, it pushes it up. This pushing down and pushing up, see, it can be a wave. This is a wave action. That's called the front. But we're talking about the whole Earth right now, so this actually could be the jet stream, because the jet stream marks where the cold air meets the warmer air, mostly aloft, and then the fronts and all the things that happen on the Earth go across this line, or in other words, this is the battle line. So when you look at a front on a weather map, you're most likely looking at the jet stream. And I mentioned to you before that this jet stream can split. Other times, I mentioned to you that we have a subtropical jet stream. Remember, it comes across the bottom. So this is air coming down, forcing itself to each other. Now, let me disappear for a second. Come over here. Map of the world. I want you to understand that even though my ribbon just stops just so far, I want you to understand that this movement of air can travel all across the whole world. In other words, you'll have a wave like that. See it? Now that wave is where the cold air is coming down, the warm air pushing up. And that could very well be a jet stream. So it does go all the way around the world. And for those of you who live way down in the south part of the world, you have the same thing down there too, of course, because it's coming off the South Pole and moving northward towards the equator. So you'll have these jet streams all over the world. You know, I think it's interesting. I have surfed the net, hit the local libraries and whatever. I have not found enough information on the jet stream. It's really lacking in what we know. I personally think what it's all about is they know what it does and about what it amounts to, and that's it. What else is there to say? But we have now found that when the jet stream changes its position on the earth, it can cause awesome things. Take, for example, let's go back to the globe. Now let's say that we're in a situation where the warm air is a little on the weak side and the cold air is the stronger one. It's putting up a better fight. Okay? What kind of weather pattern, we call that a pattern or a cycle, what do you think you could expect happening on the earth? And that would be simply that you would have a lot of cold air over the United States. Of course, I use the United States because the rest of the world's over here, but since I live in the United States, let's be prejudiced, okay, and biased. So here we have it right here. Now that means the United States would have a lot of cold weather. And there are times, if you look in history, that we've talked about blizzards and real rough times of flooding. I remember a couple years back, a long time ago, the Mississippi River. You ever seen that river? Okay. Anyway, that river overflowed its banks and went all the way back up to the northern United States because we had a situation where the jet stream and the fronts and all that were coming further south. Okay, so here we have, this is real low. But now let's say you have a situation where, where's my magnet? There he is. Let's say you have a situation where you have the warm air doing very nicely. Where'd you go? Warm air is doing really great, attacking and pushing up a lot. Now, what does that tell us? What do you think the pattern would be on the earth? In North America, we'd expect a lot of rain. Now, there was a time, remember in history, you heard about this thing, El Nino, remember? Everybody's blaming everything on El Nino, remember? If your mom's angry, it's because of El Nino. All right, but everything was blamed on the El Nino. Now, what does it really mean? It meant that the jet stream had changed its position. Yeah, they talked about the fact that the oceans were warmer and all that. Well, hey, dudes, if the temperature of the ocean is going to be affected and cause different weather pattern and changes, it could very simply be the warm water is the warm air is the boss for that season. Other seasons, your cold air comes down, it's the boss. So that's what you got to watch. You got to watch the patterns, because in order to predict the weather, for this lesson number 1 today, watch the weather patterns. If it seems that you're always getting rain from the same part of the United States, that will be a pattern for often like an entire season, like 3 to 4 months. And then all of a sudden you'll see you're starting getting weather and conditions coming from another part of the United States. For example, you can get your weather from Washington State, or you get your weather from off of Mexico coming north. So that is a pattern. It doesn't flip-flop. I mean, if you're getting weather from state of Washington over the United States, it's not only going to swing around and come off of Mexico the very next day. It is a situation of a pattern. So in predicting the weather, that's the whole purpose for these 4 lessons, teach you how to predict the weather for your location anywhere from 5 to 7 days in advance. So number thing to remember, the first thing is look and watch your patterns. So the patterns for summer would be like for what? A hurricane season? Things come off the ocean a lot. That's a pattern. But also during the summer you can have cold air coming across the United States. So the pattern is, who's the boss for that season? Is the cold air the boss, or is the warm air the boss? Are the temperatures seen to be high in the United States, or do the temperatures seem to be low in the United States? That's a pattern, and then you watch that as you go. So that's it. That's a simple part. Look at the world as a global unit. In fact, on some channels they even talk about the weather over Mediterranean and over Australia. You've seen those things. But if you live down that way, you watch your patterns. Up here in the United States, in Canada, and Mexico, that's the patterns you would watch, of course, and your satellites are your best clue. You know how they do on the TV, the man that stands there, and like I did there in front of the map and all that? They usually do a film loop where it shows the fronts, you know, moving across. Well, that's great, because then you can see it really happening. Okay, that's it. Simple enough. So what we're going to do now is just remind you that, you know, take a hold of me on the email and keep in touch. And we're going to go to lessons 2, 3, and 4. So this one's on just general world weather. The next part now is going to be in reference to fronts. So with that, we have no problem. Remember, hot and cold air, who is the boss?